We meet today at a somber time for the nation, with the recent floods wreaking havoc on the people and the country's infrastructure. To show our solidarity with those affected by the floods, we have arranged our bank at the Supreme Court to receive donations for the relief effort from participants of the conference, including myself. Despite the hardships facing the nation today, the stakeholders in the justice sector have come together to reflect on the solutions for improving the legal system for litigants. Therefore, it is my sincere hope that this conference will, inshallah, broaden our understanding and vision for building a more efficient, effective and rights-based justice sector, which will accomplish the constitutional objective of delivering substantive justice to the people of Pakistan inexpensively and expeditiously. The panel discussions scheduled for the conference are spread across 5 broad thematic areas. Our panel today has been asked to speak on the role of the judiciary in maintaining the rule of law and upholding the supremacy of the Constitution. Considering the depth of the subject matter and the shortness of time available, the task is arduous. At first sight, the proposed topic seemingly suggests that courts are indeed the principal agents for preserving the rule of law and defending the Constitution in our country. But the interests that inhere in these goals make the process complex. For the judiciary to truly maintain the rule of law and uphold the supremacy of the Constitution, it needs to be stated at the outset that the active support of the constitutional organs, the stakeholders in the justice sector, and the people of Pakistan are necessary. The concept of rule of law, as we understand it today, encompasses the authority of the state to exercise its power within the bounds of trichotomy of powers, equality before the law, subject to differentiations permitted on the touchstone of reasonable classification, and protection of the fundamental rights guaranteed to the people. In a nation like ours, which is governed by a written constitution, the content of rule of law is given substance by our constitution. In the Yusuf Raza Gilani case of 2012, this court observed, the court can only strengthen the rule of law by upholding the constitution, which is in fact the supreme law. The Constitution of Pakistan represents the ideals and aspirations of the people as recorded in the Objectives Resolution. These ideals and aspirations inter alia are establishment of democracy, grant of fundamental rights, and independence of the judiciary. Indeed, in the District Bar Association Rawalpindi case of 2015, these ideals and aspirations have been recognized by the court as the salient features of the Constitution, which Parliament has no power to repeal, abrogate, or substantively alter. These values are consequently infused into the very fabric of Pakistan and comprise features of the rule of law that exist or ought to exist in the country. For its part, the court has endeavored to remain faithful to the command of the Constitution by attempting to establish a rule of law that grants not only procedural due process to the people of Pakistan, but also protects their fundamental rights promised by the Constitution. Such rights are predominantly civil and political in nature and therefore are secured by imposing negative restrictions on the state, not to interfere in their exercise by the people, subject to, of course, reasonable restrictions imposed by law for national or public purposes. However, the jurisprudence of the court, particularly under Article 9 of the Constitution, which guarantees security to persons by ensuring that they are not deprived of their life or liberty save in accordance with law, has developed the protections provided by these fundamental rights to also include social and economic rights, which impose positive obligation on the state to improve the lives of the people in the light of the changing conditions and the needs of society. A relatively recent example of the court progressively and dynamically interpreting Article 9 in such manner is visible in the Nematullah Khan case of 2020 Supreme Court, wherein it is observed that the right to life enshrined in Article 9 now includes the provision of drinking water, electricity, education, health facilities, civic and civil infrastructure, and transportation to the people. This list may grow further, or this list will certainly grow further with the passage of time and should not be regarded as exhaustive by any means. It may have been noticed that the enforcement of rule of law in the country is linked with the rights and interests that the court identifies and upholds under the Constitution. As custodians of the Constitution and guardians of the people's fundamental rights, the court is acutely aware of the onerous duty imposed on it by the Constitution to nurture a society infused with the rule of law, in which no adverse action is taken against any citizen without the backing of law. The expanding jurisprudence of the court is a testament to its commitment to realize this ideal and aspiration of the Constitution. However, the jurisdiction is not limited to merely enforcing fundamental rights of a litigant or a class of litigants under the Constitution. The court also has an appellate jurisdiction in respect of disputes under the general law of the land. The enforcement of such laws comes before the court for consideration and application. In performing its roles, the primary effort of the court is to achieve a balance in the relationship between the state and its people, and a balance between the people themselves in the other set of disputes, to create a society that is striving to accomplish the ideals and aspirations set out in the objectives resolution. It is this balance which forms the critical essence of the rule of law, and that essence is the court's duty to secure. National values of public interest strongly indicate that the balance usually lies in favor of the people, but occasionally it requires the curtailment within reasonable limits of fundamental rights of the people for the collective good. Nevertheless, whatever the outcome of a case, the court's ultimate adjudicatory exercise is always focused to ensure the maintenance of a robust rule of law in the country. To ensure the meaningful protection of the rule of law to all citizens is a statement made in Benazir Bhutto's case in the year 1988. It opened the doors of its original jurisdiction under Article 184(3) to all and sundry by relaxing the procedural rules of locus standi that were being applied in the past. Due to this liberal interpretation, the fundamental rights of many vulnerable and marginalized groups have been enforced by the court on account of petitions filed by public-spirited persons. An example can be seen in Salman Akram Raja's case of 2013, in which the petitioners had challenged the practice of accused charged with rape obtaining acquittals by reaching out-of-court settlements with the victims and/or their families. The court, taking cognizance of the matter, issued wide-ranging guidelines for the proper investigation and prosecution of rape matters, while also declaring that rape to be a non-compoundable offense. Again, in Muhammad Aslam Khaki's case in the year 2013, the court exercised its original jurisdiction to issue identity cards to transgenders. In suo motu case number 1 of 2014, the court took notice of the suffering of religious minorities and directed the federal government to constitute a task force for developing a strategy of religious tolerance in the country. In the petition regarding miserable conditions of schools in the year 2014, the court, to enforce Article 25A of the Constitution, which mandates the state to provide free and compulsory education to children between the age of 5 and 16, they directed the provinces and the Islamabad Capital Territory to set up accreditation boards to improve the conditions of schools by removing ghost schools and taking penal action against the absentee teachers. Apart from enforcing the fundamental rights of marginalized groups in society, the court has also delivered landmark judgments to reinforce other dimensions of the rule of law. In this respect, the court has come a long way to become a champion